Aisha Noor and welcome to Millennium Headlines. This week's top headlines are: 1 dead, 4 injured in Austin shooting, manhunt underway. Trump again under fire for comments about Muslims. 1 winning ticket sold in $487 million Powerball jackpot. Flash flood kills 2, devastates Maryland City's historic downtown. Syrian civilians begin leaving rebel-held parts of Aleppo. President Obama's weekly address. Now the details to this week's top headlines. A manhunt was underway in Austin after a gunman opened fire on a crowded downtown street as bars were closing Sunday, killing 1 person and wounding 4 others, police said. Austin Police Chief of Staff Brian Manley said 5 people were shot shortly after 2 a.m. on 6th Street, a bustling 7-block entertainment district lined with historic buildings that now house bars, upscale restaurants, trendy shops, and music venues. A woman in her 20s was pronounced dead at the scene, and 3 other women were taken to University Medical Center, Breckenridge, with gunshot wounds that were not considered life-threatening. 1 other person refused treatment, he said. It was a very chaotic scene, Manley said. A lot of people running in different directions. Manley said police, based on descriptions provided by witnesses, were looking for either a light-skinned black male or Hispanic male in his 20s. We had 1 individual who was initially noted as a person of interest, Manley said. That person's status at this point is undetermined. Sam Vermankin, 26, told the Austin American Statesman that he and several friends were walking to their car when 4 or 5 shots rang out. There were just tons of people on 6th Street, and I see all of them jump toward the ground, he said. A lot of people were screaming, Manley said. It was not clear if the shooter and victims knew each other. Police were attempting to collect video from the scene, he said. We know a lot of individuals have captured the incident or the aftermath of this incident on their cell phones and other devices, Manley added. We ask that anyone who has video please forward that to us. 7 minutes after the first incident, police received reports of another incident several blocks away in which a suspect fired a gun at another person in a parking garage, Manley said. No one was injured, and nearby individuals disarmed the suspect, who was injured and transported to a hospital. The 2 incidents together led police to tweet out an active shooter warning, Manley said, but police now believe the shootings were not related. Police secured both crime scenes and warned people to avoid downtown. On behalf of the Austin Police Department, we wish to extend our deepest condolences to the families and friends of the young woman who lost her life to this senseless act of violence and wishes for a speedy recovery to the individuals wounded, Police Chief Art Acevedo said in the statement. The men and women of the Austin Police Department will work tirelessly to identify and apprehend the person responsible.
As you can imagine, with this being shortly after 2 a.m. and the large crowds that we have on 6th Street at this time, all the individuals leaving the bars, it was a very chaotic scene. A lot of people running in different directions with all the gunshots that were coming out. Our officers did a fantastic job coming in and trying to get to the victims and get aid immediately. EMS, again, being so close by, was able to get in and immediately start providing medical assistance and transporting those that were in need of care. As this incident was occurring, again, I said the initial incident occurred at 2:17 in the morning. We then had at 2:24 in the morning, we got a call of a subject being assaulted in the 800 block of Trinity near a parking garage. In this disturbance, it was a disturbance that occurred in the parking garage. one individual did pull out a weapon and fire it at another individual. And so given the fact that we had just had multiple shots fired on 6th Street, then we have another incident occur several blocks away with shots being fired again in that incident, the initial concern was that we had an individual that was engaging in active shooter tactics in the entertainment district. But again, that is not what our assessment is at this point. These were two isolated incidents. In the second incident that occurred in the parking garage, we do not know that there was anyone that was struck by gunfire. We do not have any victims from that.
Donald Trump under steady criticism after the father of a Muslim U.S. Army captain killed in Iraq tried Sunday to clarify his remarks about the family of the late Captain Humayun Khan. Captain Humayun Khan was a hero to our country, and we should honor all who have made the ultimate sacrifice to keep our country safe, Trump said in a statement. The real problem here are the radical Islamic terrorists who killed him and the efforts of these radicals to enter our country to do us further harm.
Donald Trump on Monday pleading with Republican senators to back him in the escalating feud with the Muslim family who lost their son in Iraq. Trump's campaign fired off an email calling on GOP lawmakers to take his side. This after Arizona Senator John McCain joined an angry chorus of GOP leaders condemning Trump's attacks on Khizr Khan, who stole the spotlight at last week's Democratic National Convention when he questioned Trump's patriotism.
You have sacrificed nothing.
Political correspondent sides.
He's still sort of fighting this rearguard action where he's trying to get Republicans on board with him. And it creates an image of a party that's still fractured even after a convention that was designed to show that they were together but clearly didn't.
Go ahead.
Nobody's withdrawing their support from Trump or revoking their endorsements, but clearly he's a little bit out on a limb here.
McCain, a former prisoner of war, on Monday saying, quote, while our party has bestowed upon him the nomination, it is not accompanied by unfettered license to defame those who are the best among us. Trump pouring fuel on the fire Monday, blasting Khan in a new Twitter rant. After Trump on ABC's This Week Sunday questioned why Khan's wife, Gisela, had not spoken at the convention.
Maybe she wasn't allowed to have anything to say.
The raging episode keeping Trump far off message to the dismay of many Republicans. Democratic rival Hillary Clinton now leading Trump by 6 points.
Powerball officials say one ticket sold in New Hampshire matches all 6 numbers in the Powerball drawing worth $487 million. The winning numbers for the Powerball are 11-17-21-23-32, and the Powerball number is 5. The numbers were drawn Saturday night for the nation's 8th largest lottery jackpot. There had not been a winner since May 7th when a family from New Jersey won $429.6 million jackpot. Tickets are sold in 44 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Lottery buzz.
The lotto gods rained down on us last night. It's fantastic.
4 big Powerball prizes in New Hampshire, including one winner who hit the jackpot for $487 million. A big hit and a big topic among shoppers.
That's it. God bless them.
Many who woke up to wishful thinking.
I hope it's me.
I couldn't believe it because I almost bought one here last weekend. I'm pretty bummed out that I didn't buy it.
The big question now, who did buy the ticket?
Do you play the lottery?
My husband does.
Did he buy a ticket here by any chance?
I have no idea he bought the ticket.
Maybe you get home today and he's like, hey, honey, we won $480 million.
I don't think so.
If not Charlotte Magera, there is a good chance we will someday know.
The right to know law allows us to release the winner's name, town, city, state.
Well, many in this small town are still dreaming about what if. This little guy perfectly satisfied, no upgrade needed here.
My car's way over there.
Oh, your car's over there, I see. I see. Do you like your car?
Uh-huh.
Well, that little guy had no interest in the lottery. Somebody did. Somebody bought that winning jackpot. We don't know who that is tonight, but they do have 1 year to claim their prize.
There was an overwhelming feeling of helplessness on Sunday as residents of this old mill town near Baltimore surveyed the damage from once-in-a-lifetime flooding that left at least 2 people dead and Ellicott city's historic downtown in shambles. Governor Larry Hogan, who canceled an Eastern Shore appearance to be with devastated business owners, was escorted through the wreckage that remains after sheets of rain tore through the city on Saturday night. Many locals told the Baltimore Sun that the flooding was the worst since Tropical Storm Angus in 1972. It's hard to give them any kind of consolation to make them feel better today, Hogan said. But we're just going to promise them that we are going to provide all the resources that we can to help them.
Right now, the town of 65,000 is in a state of shock hours after watching their main street morph into essentially a river.
And really, the images are just shocking. Water rescues, damaged homes, and completely destroyed businesses. Ellicott City is waking up to a scene of destruction this morning after that severe flash flooding. Our Matt Yaris was there just hours after the water swept through historic downtown last night.
As the waters receded, tears filled the streets. Residents learned that their homes, their businesses, their city was largely ruined by a flash flood.
What can I do? I was on the bottom floor. I haven't been able to get into the apartment yet, so I don't know what it looks like, but it was probably 6 feet underwater.
The smell of gas filled the air. It was thick. You could seemingly cut it with a knife. With cars overturned, electrical wires capable of dropping at any moment, officers pushed displaced people out. They were concerned explosions could fill the streets. People followed orders and grabbed their pets and left with what they had on their back.
All I saw was flooding, water everywhere, sticks, logs, people trying to get their cars, and I'm like, you're not going to go anywhere. There's water everywhere.
People said the water reached their waist. Cars' hoods were covered. But as quickly as the flood came, it departed. And it left the people of Ellicott City with this.
A lot of devastation, a lot of loss. I feel horrible for our businesses down here. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a long haul. It's very sad.
Dozens of families and some opposition fighters started leaving a besieged rebel-held neighborhoods in the northern Syrian city of Aleppo on Saturday after the government opened safe corridors for civilians and fighters who want to leave, state media reported.
In Syria, the propaganda war has lasted almost as long as the actual war. On Saturday, Syrian state television broadcast video purporting to show dozens of families fleeing rebel-held areas of Aleppo via humanitarian corridors. Safe zones set up through a joint initiative of the Russian and Syrian governments. Scenes of what appeared to be opposition fighters surrendering, contrasted with the voices of those who weren't just praising Syria's military and president, but also cursing the country's rebels.
We are relaxed now because we're under the protection of the army. May God protect them. We suffered a lot in order to be able to come here.
One journalist told he had personally witnessed hundreds of people using the corridors, leaving rebel-controlled areas.
Understandably, many people are afraid to leave their areas and cross into other places after living for years under the control of the rebels, and some of them fear prosecution, or they have relatives who have been involved in some acts of violence against the government.
But opposition activists have a very different story to tell. They say the corridors don't really exist, that no one in opposition-controlled areas of Aleppo is trying to flee, because they all doubt the Syrian government or their Russian backers will do anything to help them.
The ones who want to open humanitarian corridors must first have the ability to care about humanity. Those who commit massacres, hit hospitals, kill civilians, and target people don't care about humanity.
As fighting intensifies and the humanitarian situation worsens, aid workers have urged the Syrian government to allow for the delivery of aid into Aleppo and not just provide an outlet for people to leave.
The most important medical supplies and drugs are starting to be scarce already. Our contacts in these hospitals are telling us about hundreds of wounded people coming to the hospitals, being the emergency rooms and the OTs being absolutely flooded of wounded people.
For the moment, confusion over these corridors persists. Even the UN is unclear as to what exactly is happening on the ground in Aleppo. It's just one reason aid agencies continue to call for a ceasefire.
In this week's address, retired federal judge Timothy Lewis joined Vice President Joe Biden to discuss the nomination of Chief Judge Merrick Garland to the Supreme Court of the United States. The Vice President talked about his experience as the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, during which every nominee got a hearing end-to-end up or down vote on the Senate floor. Despite having more federal judicial experience than any other Supreme Court nominee in history, Chief Judge Garland's nomination has now been pending longer than any other Supreme Court nominee who wasn't withdrawn from consideration. Judge Lewis emphasized that this lack of action is preventing the Supreme Court from fulfilling its duty of interpreting the law and resolving conflicts in the lower courts. The Vice President made clear that for the sake of our nation, everyone must do their job. That's why the President did his job by nominating Chief Judge Merrick Garland. Now it's time for the Senate Republicans to do their job.
Hi folks, Joe Biden here. I'm sitting with Tim Lewis, a retired federal judge who was nominated to the bench by a Republican president, confirmed by a Democratic Senate within 4 weeks of a presidential election.
Hello everyone. That's right. And I'm living proof that President Obama's nominee to the Supreme Court, Chief Judge Merrick Garland, deserves similar consideration by today's Senate.
Not only because Merrick Garland is recognized, I might note without exception, by the right and the left as one of America's sharpest legal minds and a model of integrity,
but also because that's what the Constitution requires. The sitting president shall, not may, but shall nominate someone to fill a vacancy on the Supreme Court with the advice and consent of the Senate. That includes consulting and voting.
Folks, here's how it works. For 17 years, I was chairman or the ranking member, that is the top opposition party person, in the Senate Judiciary Committee, which oversees nominations to the courts, all federal courts. I presided over 9 Supreme Court nominees, more than anyone alive. Some I supported and others I didn't. But every nominee was greeted by committee members. Every nominee got a committee hearing. Every nominee got out of the committee to the Senate floor, even when the nominee didn't receive under the rules a majority support in the committee to be reported out. Because I thought the Senate should advise and consent, not the committee. And every nominee, including Justice Kennedy, in an election year, got an up or down vote by the Senate. Not much of the time, not most of the time, every single time. That's the Constitution's clear rule of advice and consent. And that's the rule being violated today by Senate Republicans. Nobody is suggesting that senators have to vote yes on a nominee. Voting no is always an option for any senator. But saying nothing, seeing nothing, reading nothing, hearing nothing, and deciding in advance to simply turn your back, it's not an option. The Constitution leaves open to a United States senator.
And it has real consequences for all of us. In the several months since Merrick Garland's nomination, we've already seen how the Senate's refusal to act is preventing the court from fulfilling its duty of interpreting what the law is and resolving conflicts in lower courts. This historic obstruction is leading to greater litigation costs and delays, the burden falling mostly on average Americans rather than corporations with endless resources. Unresolved decisions by the Supreme Court are leading to federal laws that should apply to the whole country being constitutional in some parts, but unconstitutional in others. And if this continues, our freedom of speech, our freedom to practice our faith, our right to vote, our right to privacy, all could depend on where we happen to live.
And the longer the vacancy remains unfilled, the more serious the problem, the greater confusion and uncertainty about safety and security. You know, if you have 8 justices on the court, Justice Scalia himself wrote that it raises, quote, the possibility that by reason of a tie vote, the court will find itself unable to resolve significant legal issues presented by the case. And if Republican senators fail to act, it could be an entire year before a fully staffed Supreme Court can resolve many of the significant issues now before it. Folks, there's enough dysfunction in Washington, D.C. Now is not the time to spread that dysfunction from the Congress to the Supreme Court.
And we're better than what we are seeing. As a country, we are only as strong as the traditions we value that we sustain by dedicating ourselves to something bigger than ourselves.
Folks, the defining difference of our great democracy has always been that we can reason our way through to what ails us, and then we act as citizens, voters, and public servants to fix it. But we have to act in good faith, for unless we can find common ground, we can't govern. So for the sake of the country we love, we all have to do our job. The president's done his. The Senate Republicans must do theirs. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have a good weekend.
1 dead, 4 injured in Austin shooting. Manhunt underway. Trump again under fire for comments about Muslims. 1 winning ticket sold in $487 million Powerball jackpot. Flash flood kills 2 and devastates Maryland City's historic downtown. Syrian civilians begin leaving rebel-held parts of Aleppo. President Obama's weekly address. This has been Nishat Noor. Thank you for watching Million Headlines. See you next week.